All right, let's hope our audio is working on this one. I hope you can hear me. I'll look for those confirmation messages in the chat screen to say that things are working. Looks like levels are way too high, so if you actually can hear me, then I was just blasting your eardrums. But tell me in the chat if it's working. On this special Saturday, goodness, we're already off to a bad start. This New Year's Eve afternoon edition of the Panther-Lair Show. It's New Year's Eve. It's about 1:30 here in the afternoon. And thought, you know what? We should fire up a live stream. Didn't get a chance to do one on Wednesday night because I was flying down to Atlanta for the Peach Bowl on Wednesday night. Couldn't move it back to Tuesday night because of the Pitt basketball game. And then wasn't really able to do a post-game show after the Peach Bowl last night, partially because it was pretty late, partially because I was nervous about hotel internet, and I didn't know if it was going to be reliable enough to fire up a live stream and get that going. So just kept skipping it and thought, well, we'll figure something out. We'll do something at some point, and worst comes to worst, we'll just wait and do it next week. But got home from Atlanta, flew in earlier this morning, landed around 11 or so. Did a little bit around the house, did a little bit of work, and thought, you know what? Let's do an afternoon live stream. Maybe enough people will be off work that, or at least in a position where they can tune in. That we'll get a little crowd, get a little chat going. And the fact is, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about last night's game. There's a lot to talk about this season. There's a lot to talk about transfers. There's a lot to talk about coaches leaving. And so why would we wait until next Wednesday? We could talk about these things today. And we've got people filing in. Of course, I appreciate it. Justin and Royce both telling me the sound is good, so I appreciate that, guys. Thank you for doing that. It's New Year's Eve, but it's the afternoon, so I feel like I don't want to get a beer out just quite yet, although I certainly don't have any issue if you do that. I mean, I would like to have a beer right now, but I kind of feel like, given that I didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night, probably fall asleep a little bit sooner than I would like to today if I start drinking now. But, we've obviously got a lot to talk about. The message boards are buzzing at Panther-Lair.com. You should know that website, Panther-Lair.com. I've got it right here on the screen. Most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. You're going to find everything you want there, and you're going to find message boards where you can talk to other Pitt fans about Pitt sports. And, whether it's football, it's the Peach Bowl, it's the season, it's the transfers, it's the coaches, it's, basketball. I lost my train of thought because I'm noticing I still have the slideshow on the screen, the slideshow from the ACC championship game. I meant to put in photos from the Peach Bowl before we got started here, but I didn't get that done. So I just noticed that. That's well, we'll get it for next time. But then obviously on the basketball side, there's plenty to talk about. Pitt, with the loss to Notre Dame on Tuesday night, it was a close one. It was one they could have won. Chalk it up as another game they could have won. So my point is there's a lot to talk about right now with Pitt sports, and we're talking about it all on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And I'll tell you real quick about home field because I got my Hawaii sweatshirt on today. It was perfect for travel. Homefieldapparel.com is the place you need to go if you're looking for probably the sweetest Pitt gear you're going to find. Super high-quality T-shirts, super high-quality sweatshirts. Great logos, great designs. I mean, this is a Hawaii sweatshirt, but I mean, you've seen some of the Pitt shirts, the vintage rock or the vintage, the warm up the Victory Lights shirt. I mean, they're just great designs, and they're the kind of thing that slightly different than what you're going to find in the official team store and on super high quality material. So I mean, it's just a winning combination. So you go to homefieldapparel.com, you check out their Pitt collection, collection for all the schools that they have. If you use the promo code LAIR, L-A-I-R, you're going to get 15% off your first order. Can't lose with that. Christmas is over, but you still like to buy things for yourself, right? And maybe you have someone with a birthday coming up. Promo code LAIR at homefieldapparel.com. You get 15% off your first order. So make sure you go do that. Make sure you check out what they've got at Home Field. All right. Here we are. It's the morning after the Peach Bowl, and there's a lot of thoughts. And there's a lot of thoughts about that game. There's a lot of thoughts about what that game means. There's a lot of thoughts about what the game means for the season, what the game means for the future, what the game means for the present. And I think I probably have the same thoughts that a lot of you have, for the most part. I've seen some pretty ridiculous takes in the aftermath of this game, but I mean, takes are meant to be ridiculous, right? What it comes down to with last night's game, what it comes down to with the Peach Bowl, is that Pitt went out there for the vast majority of the game, the bulk of the game, with its third string quarterback, missing its, obviously its number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks, missing its number 1 running back, missing two receivers who have been on the 2 deep, missing a starting right guard, missing a starting defensive end, missing a starting defensive tackle, missing a starting cornerback, missing a 2 deep linebacker, about 10 guys who would be on the 2 deep and weren't there. And this isn't to make excuses. That's not what we're talking about. But I'm sort of setting up my point here that Pitt went out there missing all of those pieces, and again playing with a third string quarterback, and took the number 10 team in the country down to the wire. Had every reason to believe that they were going to win that game, and had a legitimate chance to win that game. And there are a lot of reasons why they didn't win that game. And it's on both sides of the ball, and it's a chicken and egg thing to some extent. I think most of it's going to fall on the offense, and I think most of it should fall on the offense personally, because I think if they stay on the field, if they're able to stay out there a little bit longer than all these 3 and outs they had in the fourth quarter. Well, they had 1 3 and out in the fourth quarter, because they only had 2 possessions in the fourth quarter. But I mean, you look at this, the second half, Pitt goes 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. So how many 3 and outs did I just list? 4 before they get to that final drive where they actually move the ball. If Pitt's offense stays on the field a little bit longer, the defense isn't as gassed as they were. They don't have a 10-minute difference in time of possession. Michigan State doesn't run 49 plays in the second half to only like 21 for Pitt. And maybe they have a better chance. I mean, if nothing else, they keep Michigan State off the field, and they keep their defense they keep Pitt's defense off the field. So they have a better chance to win if they can manufacture some offense. And you can pick any one of those spots. You can say if they still had Nick Patty, they probably manufacture a little more offense than they did, and they end up winning the game. If they still had Izzy Abanikanda, I give them a good chance of keeping that game going, of keeping some of those drives going a little bit longer and potentially having a better chance to win. If they had Jake Cradle still out there, and Cradle got hurt a while ago, he's been out for a long time, but how much pressure came from the right side of the offensive line? They were getting beat there. They were getting beat specifically at the right guard spot. The defensive guys, Deslin Alexander, Keyshawn Camp, Chase Pine, Damari Mathis, they don't play in this game. Do they make a difference if one of them if one of those guys plays? Does he make a difference? I don't know. I don't know if Deslin Alexander gets much more pressure. I think it gives you more opportunity to rotate. I think you're able to rotate the defensive ends a little bit more if you have Deslin Alexander. Although Bam Brima made a play or two. He was effectively the guy who came in. Dayon Hayes got a lot more snaps than he has usually gotten as a result of Deslin Alexander being out. Bam Brima, though, became the 4th defensive end, and I thought, made a couple big plays. Or he had at least 1 tackle for loss, I think. So he made the most of his opportunity. I guess you would say, possibly, a sack, actually. Bam Brima had 1 of Pitt's 3 sacks. I guess you could possibly say Damari Mathis might have made an impact here, but I think it's just the way Pitt was playing defense. I apologize. There we go. I think we've got a connection back. So I apologize for the buffering if you were experiencing some buffering there. I think we're sending data again. So I apologize for that if you were trying to figure out why nothing was happening. But I mean, maybe Damari Mathis maybe helps defending some of those plays. I'm not sure. It was just, I think it really came down to Pitt's offense just needed to stay on the field a little bit longer. They needed to do better than 4 3 and outs in the second half. They couldn't. They just couldn't stay on the field. And that to me was the biggest problem. Now, I mean, at some point, you got to be able to step up. You have to make plays, and Pitt's defense has been really good on third down. They've been really good on fourth down, but they weren't in this game, particularly in the second half. I think they got worn down. I think they played a lot, and they tried to rotate the defensive players a lot. I mean, they had guys coming in and off the field a whole bunch, particularly defensive linemen. I mean, they would start a series. Michigan State would run one play, and Pitt would swap the D ends out or swap the D tackles out, or switch a linebacker or something like that. I mean, they were moving in and out trying to keep fresh legs, but it just, all those issues combined, and they still were able to go down to the wire with the team that finished the season number 10 in the college football playoff rankings. And maybe that's a testament to Michigan State being overrated, or maybe it's a testament to this Pitt team just battling. And I think that's what they did. I mean, they battled. And Davis Bevell didn't look great. And we could talk a lot about the play calling and whether it was too conservative, whether they needed to try and push it a little bit more. But I mean, the reality is, they end up, with an 11-point lead with their third string quarterback. The thing you want to do there is avoid making mistakes. You want to, at that point, you want to avoid doing something that's going to bring the other team back in. And, you don't want to go 3 and out every time, but you're content to be conservative on offense and play tough defense. You know what I mean? You've got your third string quarterback in the game. Don't let him blow it. You know what I mean? And that's not a disrespect to Davis Bevell. It's just the reality of the situation. You have a guy doesn't have a lot of experience, hasn't played a lot this year. Don't put him in a position to lose the game. Now they get down to it, and it's 24-21, and they need to drive for a touchdown. There's 3 minutes left to go. You're going to have to start throwing it. And he got into a rhythm. I think he completed 5 passes in a row. I think he was 5 for 5 on that drive, that final drive. Made a nice throw over the middle to Jordan Addison for a 24-yard gain. Like another 7-yard pass, an 8-yard pass, just sort of chipping away until they get to the 26. Yeah, the 26. And Davis Bevell's inexperience shows through. Cal Halliday, the linebacker, takes a step toward the line of scrimmage. Bevell takes the bait, throws the pass. Halliday steps back, and he's right in the passing lane. It was a good play, a smart play by a veteran linebacker. He baited a young, inexperienced quarterback, and he got the interception and ended the game. And I mean, they're in field goal range at that point. They're at the 26. They're in range for a field goal to tie the game, and they're a stone's throw away from the end zone to win the game. And that's how close Davis Bevell was to being a hero. After really struggling for basically the entire game up until that point, outside of one playground play and a touchdown pass to Jared Wayne that he fired about as hard as he possibly could on a 5-yard score. I mean, Davis Bevell hadn't really done much, but he got into a rhythm on that final drive, and he was. I was actually working on an article right before we started this live stream where the first line in the article, the lead, as they say, is Davis Bevell was one missed read away from being a hero. And that's the truth. He misread Cal Halliday, and he threw it right to him. And so that's what happened in the game. That's what happened last night, right, in the Peach Bowl. But all I could really think as I was leaving Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is an incredible venue. It really is. Maybe Pitt will be back there at some point, and if they are, you should go because it's a great place to watch a game. It's a pretty incredible, like I say, it's an incredible venue. But as I was walking into the stadium and as I was walking out of the stadium, I had the same thought in both situations. I was thinking, as I was walking into the stadium, I was thinking, I was thinking this to myself. Whatever happens here, Pitt still won the ACC. Pitt still went 10-2 in the regular season. They were 11-2 after the conference championship game, and they won the conference. The first Coastal Division team to win the conference since 2010. First Pitt team to win 10 games in a regular season since 1981. First Pitt team to win 11 games since 1981. And I was thinking that as I was walking into the stadium. And as I walked out of the stadium, I was thinking the same thing. You know what? Regardless of what happened here, what we just saw, Pitt is the ACC champion. Pitt won this conference. Pitt had the best season of any team in this league. Pitt had the best season in the last 40 years of Pitt football. This season is not changed by what happened last night. And I think most people who are on this live stream realize this. I think most rational Pitt fans understand this. I saw somebody retweeted something on Twitter. Somebody wrote about how Pitt was so close to having a magical season. Bro, they went 10-2 in the regular season and won the conference. They had a magical season. Everybody's season is going to end in disappointment, save for one team. Right? Everybody else is going to end with disappointment in some regard. Even if you win your final game, there's going to be disappointment that you didn't have the opportunity to keep playing. There's going to be disappointment that you couldn't capitalize on opportunities. Even if they had won the Peach Bowl last night, you could have written some article about how they missed their chance at a magical season because they didn't make the playoffs or whatever. They had a magical season. They won the ACC. They became the first team since conference expansion in 2013 to repeat as Coastal Division champions. As I said, they became the first Coastal team to win the conference since 2010. And I feel like, sort of year after year, a common refrain for Pitt fans is, when's it going to be Pitt's turn? When does Pitt get to have that 10-win season where they win the conference and all this stuff? Well, they did. It happened. And it was 2021. And I think most people realize this. And I think most Pitt fans recognize that this was the special season. This is the special season. I mean, it's officially over as of last night, but this is the special season. This is the magical season. And nothing changes that. And nothing takes away from that. This game last night doesn't cast a shadow over it. It doesn't put a damper on it. It doesn't do anything like that. Because all those things still happened. All that success was achieved. And this team did more, achieved more, and experienced more success and exposure than any Pitt team in the last 40 years. And that's the truth. That's the reality of it. And so, I absolutely understand disappointment in the loss. If you're going to play a football game, the goal is to win. If you're a player, coach, fan, you want the team to win. I absolutely understand that. And there's disappointment when you don't win. There's even more disappointment when you have an 11-point lead in the fourth quarter and you end up losing by 10 points. I understand all that. I absolutely do. But I think that it comes with that caveat of all the success that they did achieve. And I'm pretty sure most Pitt fans, even if you're a little bit sore about the Peach Bowl today, by next week or so, you're going to be thinking about how special that season really was. Now, they're not going to get the rankings bump. They're not going to finish in the top 10. They might take a hit on their preseason rankings next year. It depends on how much people believe in Keaton Slovis. But the reality, I think what it comes down to it, they're going to open as a preseason top 25 team. Probably top 20, I would think, should be. Probably not top 15. Question marks about quarterback. But I would think they should be top 20 preseason. And if they are, and even if they're just top 25, they've got an opportunity to open the 2022 season with a pair of Power 5 non-conference games. They're going to play West Virginia and Tennessee both at home to open the season. And if they could win those games, then they will be top 15. If they start top 25 and they beat West Virginia and Tennessee to open the season, they're going to be top 15. If they start the season top 20 and they beat West Virginia and Tennessee to open the season, they're probably going to be like top 12 or so. And so the opportunities are considerable. The opportunity to carry the success from 2021 into 2022 is huge. And we talked about this. We talked about it last week when we talked about Keaton Slovis and these offensive linemen and all this kind of stuff. How this roster is, returning a lot and then filling in some key holes with transfers and then guys opting, choosing to return. And so, it's all still there. It's all coming together. And I don't know. I haven't gotten a huge sense that Pitt fans don't feel like it's all coming together, in the aftermath of last night's game. But, sometimes we do tend to go down that path and overreact to certain games. I think people have been mostly measured. There are things you complain about. You run a toss play on 3rd and 1. Probably not the best idea, probably not the best decision, particularly since it didn't work. You don't try to challenge or get a review on the play before that little tight end screen to Gavin Bartholomew that picked up 9, but looked like it picked up maybe 10 or picked up enough to get a first down. I mean, there are always things to sort of squabble with and pick apart. That's going to be the case in every game. You know, we're talking right here. It's almost 2 o'clock. In about 90 minutes, we're going to watch a college football playoff game between Alabama and Cincinnati, and we'll find plenty of things to pick apart. But on the whole, when you sit down and you say, were you happy with this season or were you disappointed with this season? I mean, 99 Pitt fans out of 100 have to say you're happy with it, right? Maybe 98. All right, let's get to some comments and questions. Everybody's been hanging out here. I really appreciate everybody who is joining our chat here on a Friday afternoon on New Year's Eve. Hope 2021's been a good year for you. I think for Pitt fans, it's been a good year. For I think certainly at least on the football side. So I think everybody had a good 2021 in that regard. Lots of comments and chats in there already. We're definitely going to get to all those. If you want to be a super chatter, you want to make sure your comments and questions get read and answered, you can click that little $sign down there at the bottom. Support the podcast. Michael B is one of our regular super chatters. We appreciate you. Happy New Year to you, Michael. He says, hi, Chris. Do you think Tim Salem's off the list for the offensive coordinator position because I wasn't impressed with his play calling? Also, was Keaton Slovis promised the starting job because I think Nick Patty should be giving a legitimate chance to win it? Last question first. No, Keaton Slovis wasn't promised the starting quarterback job. Now, he's not transferring to Pitt to be a backup. Pitt didn't go out and get him to be a backup. The expectation, I think, for all parties is that he will be the number one guy. But they're absolutely going to have a competition. Look, if they go into the spring and Nick Patty's healthy and available to play, I don't know how long a collarbone injury takes to heal, but if they go into the spring and Nick Patty's healthy and available, those guys are going to battle it out. They're going to have a quarterback competition. If Patty's the better player, then he's going to be the guy. If Slovis is the better player, then he's going to be the guy. If Nate Yarnell is the better player, he's going to be the guy. Or Bevel or Yellen, whoever it is. All right, they'll go with the best option. Now, I don't think Pat Narduzzi will name a starting quarterback until the absolute last minute. I would not be surprised if he doesn't name a starting quarterback at all leading up to the West Virginia game. And it's Keaton Slovis or Nick Patty on that first, opening, depth chart of the season. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I don't see him being in any kind of rush to name a starter. I definitely don't think he'll name a starter coming out of spring camp, partially because I think he wants that competition to continue, partially because he has just sort of this natural reluctance to providing any kind of information. He's repulsed by the idea. And also partially because, look, if you start naming a starter early, or if you go out and name a starter at the end of spring camp, you're opening the door for guys to transfer. Now, I think we all probably can assume, look, when Keaton Slovis gets here, there's going to be Slovis, Patty, Bevel, Yellen, and Yarnell. That's 5 scholarship quarterbacks. I don't think we would assume, I'm not assuming that all 5 are going to be on the roster when the season starts next year. You got to think some of those guys will probably go. Now, the COVID year has really kind of opened things up, super senior eligibility. Like Nick Patty has really 2 years left to play. Davis Bevel and Joey Yellen have 3 years each. Nate Yarnell has 4. So, a guy like Patty, if he decides that Pitt is not where he wants to be, or if he decides he doesn't want to be the backup again, could go to another level or go to another school and have 2 years to play, which is not an insignificant amount of time. Same thing with Davis Bevel, could go somewhere, maybe closer to home in South Carolina, and have 3 years to play. Joey Yellen is a little bit trickier of a situation. He already transferred once, so he would have 3 years to play, but he would have to sit out a year before he could start playing by per NCAA transfer rules, which some of which actually still exist. But I don't think all those guys are still going to be around. To your question, though, Michael, I think there's absolutely going to be an open competition. I don't think anything was promised to Keaton Slovis. I don't think anything would be promised to Nick Patty beyond just saying, look, guys, we're going to give everybody a chance here. Keaton, you're going to get a ton of first-team reps. Nick, you're going to get a ton of first-team reps, and may the best man win. And I think that's the way you have to approach it. I mean, what you ultimately want, you may believe that Keaton Slovis is your best option. You know what I mean? You may believe that Nick Patty is your best option or whoever. But what you want is those guys to go out on the field and in the classroom and the film room and prove it and show who really is the best option. I think every coach's ideal scenario, other than the whole risk of transfer thing, but I think every coach's ideal scenario is that you get to the end of spring camp or you get through the summer workouts or whatever it is, and you almost don't need to announce everything. It's just obvious to the whole team, to the coaches, to the players, and everybody. It's just obvious. Clearly, Keaton is our best guy after all the practices and all that kind of thing. Or clearly, Nick is our best guy. I think that's what, if Pat Narduzzi, that's what he would love to have happen, for it to just be an obvious situation. And then name, where you name a starter, but it's not really necessary to make such a public pronouncement about it because everybody already gets it. Everybody on the team already gets it. I would guess that the Pitt coaches are expecting Keaton Slovis to make that move, to make it easy for the coaches, make it an obvious and easy decision. We'll see. We'll see what he's able to do. I will say, Nick Patty, he's got a weird throwing motion. I don't think he really has the deep ball that Kenny Pickett had, but he's got some moxie. You go back to the Florida State game last year when he rushed for a couple of 1-yard goal line touchdowns because Kenny Pickett was hurt. And then you even look at his touchdown that he scored on, where he got hurt last night, scrambling and running and diving over the pylon. He's like I say, he's got some moxie. Threw the ball, decently last night. What did he finish with? 2 of 5 for 21 yards. Not a whole lot to go on there. But how about this? You talk about things that are almost forgotten from that game. The opening kickoff. Izzy Abanikanda steps away from it to let it bounce and roll into the end zone. Except it doesn't roll. It dies. Like a coffin corner kick. Or not even a coffin quarter. It hits the ground and dies. 9 times out of 10, that ball rolls into the end zone. They have it at the 25, and they start on a drive. Instead, that one lands at the 2 and dies, and Pitt has to take possession there. Now, you got to think that Pitt taking possession at the 2-yard line and going 3 and out, punting to Michigan State, which with your punter standing basically on the end line, he can't punt very far in that situation. He doesn't have a lot of room to work with. He doesn't have a lot of time to work with. They end up returning it to the 29, and they drive for a touchdown in 3 plays. Michigan State does. Let's say that's just a normal kickoff that goes into the end zone like a regular old touchback. And, Pitt gets the ball out at the 25. They have their full offense to work with. I'm not saying they drive for a touchdown, but maybe they drive a little bit further, and if they end up still having to punt, they at least make Michigan State go further than 29 yards. You talk about forgotten plays. That one was a forgotten play. Early in the game, the very first play of the game. But then, you get into that, really Nick Patty's only real drive, and, he makes a pass to, I think it was Jordan Addison on like a quick slant, picks up 12 yards. He scrambles for 8 yards on a 2nd and 5. They convert a 3rd and 1 on a Vincent Davis run. And then Patty scrambles for the touchdown. I think there were maybe 5 passing plays called on that drive. 3 passes were actually thrown and then 2 scrambles, including the touchdown. But, he had a little moxie. He looked like he was pretty decent. I don't know if he is who you want or what you want in your regular starting quarterback to go out there every game and every play. I think you want someone maybe a little more like Kenny Pickett, someone who maybe doesn't have to rely quite as much on moxie. But, I don't want to say absolutes. I'm pretty convinced that if Nick Patty doesn't get hurt, Pitt wins last night. I'm pretty convinced that if Nick Patty doesn't get hurt, they would, they're able to sustain the offense and they're able to put that one away and win the game. Probably I would say the same thing for Izzy Abanikanda, certainly with Kenny Pickett. And with Kenny Pickett, they score 40 or 50 points in that game. I don't think there's any question. But they didn't have him. And so they had to make do with what they had, and they still end up almost pulling it out. Now, Michael B's other question, do you think Tim Salem is off the list for the offensive coordinator position because I wasn't impressed with his play calling? I'm not really sure how high on the list Tim Salem was. I don't know if Tim Salem is really a top candidate. I mean, Pat Narduzzi has hired, after Jim Chaney, he's hired Matt Canada, Sean Watson, and Mark Whipple, all of those with Tim Salem on the staff. And, I've never really gotten the impression that Salem was all that high on the list. It was all that seriously considered. So, I would guess, I don't think he's off the list because of last night's game. I think, he probably, if he was on the list, he wasn't very high on the list to begin with. I thought Salem did a pretty decent job through the first half, even through the first 3 quarters or so. Obviously, that 3rd and 1 toss was not ideal. I know people in retrospect have said they should have pushed it a little bit more, not been so conservative. But, I mean, you were already in a situation with Nick Patty where you wanted to make sure that you didn't turn the ball over. You didn't want to give Michigan State short fields, which they ultimately got through no fault of Patty. On that first drive like we just talked about. But, I mean, you were already in a situation with Nick Patty where you wanted to make sure you avoided turnovers. You didn't want to make mistakes. You didn't want to give Michigan State a short field. You didn't want to have interceptions. And then you get to your third guy, and you've got this lead, and you get an extra touchdown. You get a bonus touchdown off Cam Bright with the scoop and score. You're up 11. You're just trying to get out of there. You know what I mean? You're not trying to be a hero. You're not trying to stretch the field or do any of those things because you don't want to take a chance of a mistake. And is that playing scared? Maybe. I guess so. But the reality is, I would say it was playing smart. And all right, it's a bowl game. Take risks. Look at Michigan State. They ran a fake punt and 2 flea flickers, and they did this and they did that. Well, that's great. But Pitt was in a position last night where they could win the game with their 3rd-string quarterback by not taking a whole lot of chances. And I don't think there was a need to take a whole lot of chances. I think it was smart to play conservative. You just needed to pick up a first down or two. And maybe there were other approaches you could have taken to getting some of those plays to work. But, I mean, you have a guy out there who just hasn't played much. And I think you could see it. When the pressure came, Davis Bevell, he didn't know how to handle it. I mean, kudos to him. He didn't just throw the ball away. He took like 5 sacks, but he didn't just chuck the ball up and give a chance for, an interception or something. But I mean, I think when you're in that situation, I think you have to play it conservative. You have to be smart and play it safe because that gives you the best chance to win. Now, it ultimately didn't last night, but I think it gives you the best chance to win. All right, let's get through other comments and questions. TRR says, Chris, which young defensive backs step up? Pitt needs some desperately. Look, the defensive backs in Pitt's defense are always going to be feast or famine. You're always going to love them or you're going to hate them. I think they've got really talented athletes on this team. I think A.J. Woods is pretty solid, but A.J. Woods is a great example. A.J. Woods gives up the first touchdown pass and then has some huge pass breakups. I forget, I think he had a breakup on a 3rd down or a 4th down or something like that. That's what it's going to be like when you're talking about Pitt's corners and Pitt safeties, because they get in a spotlight position a whole lot, pretty much the whole game, every game. And they're going to get beat and they're going to get burnt and there are going to be a lot of plays that they look terrible and everybody says these guys stink and these DBs aren't good enough to play this style of defense, and then they're going to make big plays. Which was the case at different times last night. I think MJ Devonshire got targeted a bunch of times and still also, came up with a couple of big plays. So it's going to be a, feast or famine. I do think that the defensive back recruiting has been really good. I think when you look at, they're going to bring back Marquez Williams, AJ Woods, and MJ Devonshire. They've got Javonte Royal and Noah Bigelow and Khalil Anderson. Right behind him, you've got the safeties back and Eric Hallett and Brandon Hill. Plus, you've got PJ O'Brien and Judson Tallender and Rashad Battle and Buddy Mack, who got hurt and missed a lot of time. I mean, you've got a lot of guys out there, and I think they've recruited the DBs really well. So I'm not really too concerned about that. I think those guys will, I think they'll play next year pretty well. They'll give up passes, but they'll also make some big breakups and get a few interceptions, I think. TRR asks, will Andre Powell get a pink slip? 3 special teams gaffes and his substitutions at running back are perplexing. I don't know what to make of that. I mean, I think that fake punt was a pretty bad play by Pitt. I think you have to have a sense that that's coming when you look at where they were on the field, situation in the game, relatively short distance. I think it was like a 4th and 3 or something like that. And you have to have a sense that could be happening. John Morgan needs to play that safer than he did. He needs to be told to play that safer than he did instead of running right past the guy who ends up getting the ball and running for a first down. So that was a pretty bad one. The substitution thing, I don't get it. They seem to be interested in relying on Izzy Abanikanda last night until he got hurt. I don't know why there wasn't more Rodney Hammond unless they were concerned about pass blocking, but I didn't really think that Vincent Davis stayed into pass block all that much. Anyway, he ended up with, where's the stats? No, he only had 3 catches. I felt like it was more than that. I thought he had more than 3, but I just don't get it. I like Vincent Davis. I understand the coaches really like Vincent Davis, but it's clear that number 2 is the best back on the team. And it's clear that number 9 as a sophomore is going to be probably your second best back. I think there's some mix and some balance to find with those 3 guys. I don't think they had it in most situations this season. Let's see here. Stan Reft, what's our final ranking? 17 to 18 would be higher if they started the next year ranked, which they should next season. What did they... So the college football playoff rankings that had Pitt number 12, those are done for the year. They won't release another one. But the AP rankings, let me just bring it up. I forgot. I just looked at this. Oh, Pitt was 13 in the AP and 12 in the coaches poll. I mean, they're going to drop in both of those. I don't think they'll drop out of the top 20. What's going to be interesting to see is Clemson and Wake Forest in the AP poll were 19 and 20. Clemson, who they beat, Iowa State or somebody like that. Clemson won their bowl game. And Wake Forest is winning. I was just looking at, they're beating Rutgers 31-10 as we say this. So, I mean, are they going to jump Pitt? So, I mean, that's the interesting question. Pitt's at 13, Wake Forest is at 20. Clemson's at 19, all these in the AP poll. It'll be interesting to see if Pitt at 11-3 falls behind one of these teams. Now, Wake Forest is going to be 11-3 as well. Clemson, I think, is, what are they, 10-3? I think is what they ended up being. So, I don't know. I don't think they should drop out of the top 20. I think they're a conference champion. I think they had one of the best teams in the country this year. I think they had a Heisman Trophy finalist, a Biletnikoff Award winner, and they won a Power 5 conference with 2 losses in the regular season. I mean, I think that's the resume of a top 20 team, regardless of what happened when they were playing in the bowl game with their 3rd string quarterback. You'd like to think the AP voters are aware enough of all those different elements, not just the 3rd string quarterback, but just what Pitt did accomplish this season. And you'd like to think that they're going to look at it and say, this is a top 20 team. It's where they should be. And then we'll see what the preseason brings next year. And like I said, I think a lot of that's going to depend on how much people believe in Keaton Slovis. Because, again, they bring back almost everything else. Some key losses, linebacker in particular, but they bring back almost everything else. Fill in the quarterback hole, and this should be a preseason top 20 team. Alan Bolomo says, what was the biggest lesson learned last night? Biggest lesson? That's a good question. I don't know. What lessons do you learn? What do you learn from a game, a bowl game at the end of a season when you won the conference, you went 10-2 in the regular season, and you were down 2 quarterbacks. You were down to your 3rd quarterback in the bowl game, and you still almost end up pulling it out. I don't know what lessons you learned from that. Maybe you come up with different ways to defend those curl routes. That might be one. I don't know. I don't know what lessons there are. It was a game. It was just a game. It was an exhibition game at the end of a great season. Maybe I don't know. I'd have to think about that, Alan. I don't know what lessons I learned. Maybe I didn't learn anything. Let's see. Royce Beacom says, couldn't understand why we couldn't get better pressure on their quarterback. Yeah, Pitt didn't really get after Peyton Thorne much at all last night. They had 3 sacks. They pressured him a little bit, but not as much as I expected them to. On a completely unrelated note, I think there was one holding call last night. One has nothing to do with the other. I would certainly never presume to imply anything there, but I think there was only one holding foul. I think it was called on Michigan State, but I forget if there were any others other than that. But there weren't many. But that's neither here nor there. Coaster King says, does the Brennan Marion situation hurt our chances with Kanata Mumpfield in any way? So Kanata Mumpfield is the Akron wide receiver. He's in the transfer portal. He visited Pitt. I think he's arguably the top receiver available in the transfer portal. He's got offers from a lot of places. Louisville, Vanderbilt got visits from him. I thought he visited one other place in addition to Pitt, but Ole Miss is after him. LSU is trying to get him. There are a lot of schools trying to recruit him because he was one of the best freshman receivers in the country. He was a freshman All-American, one of the best receivers in the MAC, and I think when you look at his ability plus all the years of eligibility he has left, I think he has 3 years left to play. I think he's got one of the best overall. He's probably one of the best overall wide receivers available in the portal, and I think Pitt's got a great chance at landing him. Now, throws a little bit of a wrench in the gears when Brennan Marion is apparently leaving for Texas to be the wide receivers coach and maybe pass game coordinator and get a really big check. I don't think it helps get Mumpfield, when you lose the receivers coach, but I don't think it's a death blow. I think they'll still have a really good chance of getting him. Pat Narduzzi has been really involved in recruiting Mumpfield. Graham Wilbert's been really involved. He's the director of recruiting or whatever his title is, recruiting coordinator or something like that. He's been really involved with Mumpfield. So you've got multiple points of contact, not just one guy. And I think that's the key. You might have a strong relationship there, but as long as you built some other strong relationships, you can continue your pursuit. It's not a killer when you lose an assistant coach or something like that. So I don't know. I don't know that losing Brennan Marion is going to cost Pitt its shot at Kanata Mumpfield. I think they've got a really good chance of getting him. And if they bring him in addition to Keaton Slovis, and you put Mumpfield on one side and Jordan Addison on the other, with Jared Wayne and Jaden Bradley and Jalen Barden mixed in with those guys, and Gavin Bartholomew and all those running backs we talked about, and all the offensive line coming back, and if Keaton Slovis is anything close to how good as he was at his best at USC, I mean, this offense, and you have an offensive coordinator who doesn't, who doesn't blow it. I think this offense has a great chance to be really good if they can get him. Let's see here. Scroll down. TRR says, is it true Pitt has to petition the NCAA to preserve Terrence Moore's red shirt? If so, whose fault is that? So, Terrence Moore, freshman, offensive lineman, played in 5 games this season. His 5th game, you're allowed to play in 4 games and still take a red shirt. His 5th game was the North Carolina game. He came in for 1 snap to replace Owen Drexel. Drexel had to come out because his helmet came off. And that's a rule. You have to, if your helmet comes off, you have to leave the field for a play. And so Drexel came out, Terrence Moore went in, played 1 snap, and then they switched back. Now, Pat Narduzzi's contention was that Owen Drexel's helmet got knocked off rather than falling off. I guess there's a distinction there, that Carolina pushed his helmet off. And the way he said it to us is that in an event like that, the player shouldn't have to leave the field. Apparently that's in the rules. If your helmet gets pushed off, you don't have to leave the field. You just put it back on, you're fine. Although I can't really think of too many instances where I've seen anything like that happen. But that's neither here nor there. So that one play, because the helmet came off, blew Terrence Moore's red shirt. And I do get the impression that Pat Narduzzi's trying to petition or something like that. I mean, whose fault is it? I mean, maybe the refs for not noticing that. Maybe Pitt for not having another center available to go in for one play, whether it's Blake Zabovic or somebody like that, although Zabovic was probably playing right guard at that point. I assume that was after Jake Cradle got hurt. I don't know. We'll see what happens there if they're able to get Moore's red shirt back. All these guys, though, I mean, I guess Moore wouldn't have the COVID year, so it's not like he's got that extra year on the back end. But, I don't know. Over the years, I've just become less and less moved by red shirts. Whatever. Guys take a red shirt or they don't. I think offensive linemen, you'd always like to have them take red shirts, but it's not always going to be a possibility. But, we'll see what they're able to do with Moore. TRR also asks, do you think a new offensive line coach wouldn't be the worst thing for this program? Fresh eyes, and I worry all the kids coming back will be given their jobs. Taylor and Jacoby, I hope, get a fair shot. Look, if anybody's a better option, they'll play. I really believe this. I don't understand, and I've never understood why some fans believe that coaches don't want to win games. Because that's what it comes down to when we talk about some of these personnel things. Well, this guy's obviously better. Why isn't this guy getting a shot? Why don't they put this guy out there? Well, they're playing the players they're playing because through however many practices and however many hours in the film room and however many team meetings and all those things, the coaches have determined that these guys, these 11 on offense and these 11 on defense, know the system the best, have the most athletic upside, and give you the best chance to succeed on the field. They're playing the guys they believe in, And I think if there's a situation where in practice one guy starts elevating above another guy, then they switch and they move them around and they play one guy more than another. But, Branson Taylor and Ryan Jacoby, you hope they will get a fair shot. They will. They're going to have all the practice reps. They're going to have all the film session and all that time. And if they're better than the guys ahead of them, then they'll play. And you say, you worry that the kids coming back will just be given their jobs. Sure, but if Carter Warren or Marcus Minor or Owen Drexel or Gabe Hoy, if somebody stinks, they're not going to play. If there's a better option, the coaches will play the best options. Coaches want to win even more than you do. They really do. Their livelihood depends on it. And so unless they are trying to lose, they will play the players who they feel are the best and give them the best chance to win. And so, yeah, all those guys will get a fair shot. There's a lot of reps in practice. Everybody's going to get an opportunity. And they'll go with the guys who they feel, based on all the information they have available to them, which is more than you and I have, they'll play the guys that they feel give them the best chance to win. And this isn't like, I'm not saying, you got to defer to the coaches on every personnel decision, but I have a hard time with personnel stuff because we just don't have all the information that the coaches have. We don't have that regular exposure to the players. We don't have all that practice time. We don't have all that film time. It's literally like hundreds, several hundred times more information than we have. We watch a game, watch a couple snaps here, a couple snaps there. We have our own preconceived notions about what this guy can do or what that guy can do. But the coaches have a whole lot more information, and they have a whole lot more riding on it. And so, they'll get an opportunity. I mean, to your point, everybody's going to get a fair shot. And if they are better, they'll be the ones who play. Let's see here. Jason Martell says, tough situation for everyone, especially Davis Bevel. 11-point lead and just needed a few first downs in the fourth quarter. No, Izzy Abanikanda didn't help. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a big problem. They needed to stay on the field just a little bit longer. Like I said, in the whole second half, they went 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And then that last drive, the drive where they almost tied the game and almost won it. And so, yeah, one of those drives, they needed to stay on the field more than 3 plays. A couple of those drives, they needed to stay on the field more than 3 plays. But they weren't able to do it. Izzy Abanikanda probably helps with that. Nick Patty helps with that. I don't think there's any question. There's a bunch of guys. They could have helped, but they didn't have them, so they had to do what they could. And I don't think, again, and I feel like probably people will point to like the play calling, but I don't think in most of those situations, I don't think you're trying to air it out down the field with your third string quarterback who's not really doing a great job at seeing the pressure pre-snap, not really doing a great job at reacting to the pressure when it comes. I don't know if you want to start putting him in a position to make a lot of deep passes. You're trying to extend your drives and stay on the field, but you're also not trying to give Michigan State a short field and easy opportunity. Talk is Pitt says, I've been saying this all year. The O-line for Pitt is trash, and yet I've been called dumb for saying that. Kenny Pickett was sacked 29 times, and what happened tonight? Our backups got sacked 7 times. Pitt's O-line is trash. It's interesting. I got to say, you are alone in that respect. Kenny Pickett was sacked 29 times. He played 13 games, right? So you're talking about maybe 2 sacks per game. And yeah, Kenny Pickett kept plays alive. Kenny Pickett scrambled. Kenny Pickett got pressure and had to make those plays on his feet because the pressure was coming, because the offensive line gave up pressure. I don't know if there's any question about it, but calling the offensive line trash when they average better than 40 points per game, I don't know about that one. I'm not going to call you dumb for saying that, but you said other people have. Royce Beacom says, isn't this a good reason to go to a 12-team playoff? Kenny Pickett plays and Pitt advances in the tournament. Yeah, so here's the thing. If you want to expand the playoffs, if you want to ask guys to play more games like this, you have to compensate them. You have to pay. They have to get money. They have to get cash. I don't see how you can do it otherwise. You know what I mean? Because, like, and maybe if you expand the playoff, maybe Kenny Pickett and Kenneth Walker do play. But should they? You know what I mean? Like, should they be expected to play that many more games without any kind of real compensation? I just don't think I don't think they should. I don't think they should be expected to do it, and I don't think they should do it. I mean, at some point, you're going to have to give these people something for their labor. And it's been suggested to me, and I don't think it's a terrible idea, that the bowl games could take out insurance policies for the players. You know what I mean? As sort of an incentive to play or an incentive to not opt out. But anybody who criticized Kenny Pickett, and said he made the wrong decision, I mean, I think when you look at what happened to Nick Patty, I mean, that pretty much, I don't want to say it proves Kenny Pickett right, but kind of. I mean, his concerns were not unfounded. His concerns were not unfounded. And, I don't know how you go about getting guys to not opt out of the bowl game. It's like you said, Royce, you increase the playoff teams. So you have 12 teams, and assuming, because then Ohio State's going to play and those guys aren't going to, Ohio State would be in the playoffs and those guys wouldn't opt out. Oregon would be in the playoffs and the Thibodeau kid wouldn't opt out. Pickett and Walker wouldn't opt out. But I don't know. I'm not totally okay with expanding the playoffs and asking these guys to play more games without any additional compensation. I think you've got to come up with something for them. Let's see here. Jason Martell says, once we got into field goal range, I was hoping for a shot at the end zone. Michigan State was sitting on routes. Would have loved Jared Wayne in single coverage on the outside of a double move to Jordan Addison. Hindsight, I realize. Yeah, well, I mean, I think the thing, Jason, is I like the idea. I like the idea of taking a shot at the end zone once you got down into field goal range. They were, let me get my play-by-play. So, I mean, yeah, they, the Addison pass, the 24-yard pass to Addison, they get to the 41. That might be a little bit too far, but then it's a 7-yard pass to Melky Stovall. It gets him into the 34. Maybe there. Maybe on 2nd and 3 from the 34. Maybe you take your shot there. But the problem is, and the problem with any kind of deeper pass or slow developing pass, on that 2nd and 3 from the 34, Bevel, they go to an empty set and Bevel throws to Lucas Krull. They connect for 8 yards, but Bevel had to scramble to make that throw. And that's my problem with taking a shot at the end zone, even once you get inside the 35, or even when you get inside the 30 after that next play, you're 1st and 10 from the 26. You're just, I don't know that you have time to have Davis Bevel take a 5-step drop or a 7-step drop and throw something deep to the end zone, a 40-yard pass or a 35-yard pass or something like that. I just don't know if you have time for it. There was too much pressure. And the thing about Michigan State's defense, we all talked about their numbers against the pass this season and how they were 130th in passing yards allowed per game and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so they had statistically the worst pass defense in the country, but they were actually pretty good at getting to the quarterback. So they either gave up a lot of passing yards on volume passes, or they got to the quarterback for sacks. And I think we saw that pressure last night. And it was getting to Davis Bevel. So I don't think you want to put him in a position to drop back, particularly not there, Jason. I mean, you get to the 34, you're in good shape. You know what I mean? You get to the 26, you're in good shape. Like you said, you're in field goal range. Well, so from the 26, let's say they go incomplete 3 times. Now you're looking at, what, a 43-yard field goal probably? 43, 44. I forget where Scarton likes to set up, if he sets up 7 yards or 8 yards. But if you're at the 26 and you drop back for like a longer pass or a shot at the end zone and you take another 8-yard sack, now you're back to the 34. And you're looking at a 51 or 52-yard field goal. I don't think, again, it's risk aversion in this situation. And I don't think you wanted to take the chance of a turnover or getting a sack that's going to push you back out of field goal range. I mean, at that point, you've got the game-tying field goal. You've got that pretty much locked up when you get to the 26. You're in range for Scarton to make a game-tying field goal. But, if you drop back and take a sack, you're going to push yourself out of range, and now you're in bigger trouble. Now you're in trouble. Talkis Pitt is really on fire today. He says, all I hear is Kenny Pickett is sacrificing millions if he plays. So the hell what? Why accept an invite to play in the Senior Bowl but not the Peach Bowl? Football players are soft nowadays. Yeah, I mean, that's silly. It's silly. Like, you're not going to call Kenny Pickett soft. I mean, that's ridiculous. He gave more for Pitt football than you have, Talkis Pitt. I don't know if you would call yourself soft, but you haven't given for Pitt football what Kenny Pickett has. Why is he going to play in the Senior Bowl? I don't even know if he's going to play in the Senior Bowl game. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But he's going to be at the Senior Bowl practices where there are evaluations and NFL scouts, and you can talk to people and interviews with NFL scouts. He's going to take part in that because that's part of the draft evaluation process. He did what Pitt needed him to do, and he won an ACC championship. You'd love to have him for the Peach Bowl because, as John Kristofich says, we didn't beat Michigan State because Kenny didn't play. Yeah, with Kenny Pickett, they win. There's no question in my mind about it. They probably win by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I'm pretty sure they win if Nick Patty stays in the game. It would have been great. Be 12-2. That would have been awesome. Peach Bowl, champions, and all this stuff. But the reality is he did his job. And once that ACC championship was won, he needed to start thinking about the future. And the best decision for his future, whether you like it or whether I like it or not, the best decision for his future was not playing in Atlanta last night. All right. Let's see here. Scroll through some more comments and questions. Justin E. says, at this point, I'm interested in the offensive coordinator vacancy, Brendan Marion leaving, and that effect on Addison and the recruitment of Mumfield. Yeah. So as far as the offensive coordinator vacancy goes, I mean, I got to think Pat Narduzzi is going to move pretty quickly on this, but whether that means a couple days or a couple weeks is anybody's guess. We've seen him take his time with these hires in the past. We've seen him not really rush it. At this point, you've got your quarterback transfer in place. He's going to enroll and be on campus in a couple of weeks, or next week probably. So, that you don't need a coordinator in place for that. You've got that kind of locked up. Kanata Mumfield, like we talked about, I mean, I think there are strong connections with Pat Narduzzi and Graham Wilbert, and those guys should be able to help close that deal, so the coordinator shouldn't be a big issue. As far as Jordan Addison and Brennan Marion leaving, I mean, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Brennan Marion says, hey, we'd love to have you at Texas. Why wouldn't he? He's got, the best receiver in the country. So, yeah, he should try to get him to come with him. But I don't see Jordan Addison leaving. Just me personally. I mean, he was recruited. I know he might like Brennan Marion a lot, and it's his receivers coach. But he was recruited by Chris Beatty and played his first year under Chris Beatty. So, it's not it's not like this is the first coaching change that Jordan Addison has gone through. Does he want to go through another one? Probably not. I'm sure he would like to have Brennan Marion stick around. But I'm really a believer that Jordan Addison has a lot of natural talent. I'm really a believer that Jordan Addison is very physically gifted and a really good football player, a great football player. I think the next wide receivers coach who comes in and works with Jordan Addison is going to look like a really good wide receivers coach, because Jordan Addison is really good. And this isn't to diminish anything Brennan Marion did, but I'm a big, they say there's the X's and O's and Johnny's and Joe's. I'm a big believer in the players. The players make the coaches. And people are saying like, well, Narduzzi didn't win anything before he had Pickett. Well, yeah, I mean, most coaches, have their best success when their best player is the quarterback. You know what I mean? When the quarterback has a great season, that usually translates into a lot of success for the coach. Things tend to line up. And I think, this season, Pitt's receivers dropped fewer passes. Absolutely. Kenny Pickett also threw much more catchable balls. Jordan Addison was better this year than he was last year, but he's a sophomore as opposed to being a freshman. And a sophomore who had a full offseason of conditioning work and practice and drills and all those things, whereas last year, going into his freshman year, he had 3 practices in the spring because he enrolled early, and then that was it until like August because of all the COVID restrictions. And so you would expect him to be better his second year. You would expect the receivers to catch more passes if the quarterback has better touch on his passes and better anticipation. Kenny Pickett was much better in 2021 than he was in 2020. And I think that had a whole heck of a lot to do with the improvement of Pitt's receivers. And again, this isn't to diminish Brennan Marion or, Tim Salem, because the tight ends caught the ball better. But look, the tight ends did catch the ball better because Lucas Krull and Gavin Bartholomew are better than the guys they rolled out there last year or the year before. I think, and again, Kenny Pickett was throwing the ball much better. So I'm usually inclined to give the credit to the players. I also put a lot of blame on the players. I feel like they're the guys who make the plays. They're the guys who go out and execute. And they're the guys whose, their individual success means the most to the team's success. Let's see here. A lot of people talking about Kenny Pickett. Josh Newark says, I hated Atlanta. It was ugly weather, ugly game. Nothing like having your flight canceled during the third quarter. Spent most of the second half trying to get home. I'm sorry to hear that, Josh. The weather was bad. Wednesday night, there was a tornado watch. I mean, it's better than a tornado warning, but it's still not good. So the weather was, so the weather was ugly. It rained most of the day on Thursday. I've never had that happen in Atlanta once. Still nice temperatures. Still pretty warm. But it wasn't. It was not as nice as it's been in the past. I still like Atlanta. I think I like Atlanta because it's easy to get around. I mean, getting from the airport into like the hotels and like downtown, midtown area, like I mean, it just couldn't be easier with that train. And then I think getting around the city is not that tough. Like once you kind of get the lay of the land, there's a lot of good restaurants, a lot of good, like nightlife. It seemed a little bit more dead this year than in previous years, but it was also like a Wednesday night and a Thursday night as opposed to like other times I've been there have been Friday night and Saturday nights. And then the whole plane situation, I feel bad for everyone who was impacted by that. And my flight out was at like 8 o'clock on Wednesday night. And there were a lot of people on my plane who were booked on earlier flights in the day and got bumped because the flight got canceled and they had to, get onto a later flight. And some people got moved even to Thursday morning, and then that flight got bumped around. I mean, it did seem like there was a bit of a mess. That's not Atlanta's fault, though. That's like Delta's fault. So, you can talk to them about that. But I still like Atlanta a lot and look forward to going down there in 2 years. It'll be weird for Pitt to have a whole season next year where they don't play in Atlanta, unless they make the Peach Bowl next year. Biz says Todd Sibley and Shockey Jacques Louis in the transfer portal. Yeah, that news came out, I think, while I was flying this morning. Todd Sibley and Shockey Jacques Louis both going into the portal. I mean, I can't say either one of those guys is really a surprise. The COVID year gives each of them an extra season of eligibility. Not too surprised that they're going to use that. Todd Sibley, I mean, I was surprised when Todd Sibley didn't participate in senior day because it made it seem like he's going to come back. I was like, why would he come back? He's no better than fourth on the depth chart behind Vincent Davis and Izzy Abanikanda and Rodney Hammond. All those guys have eligibility left. All those guys are going to be back in 2022, you would assume. Why would Todd Sibley return to get like 5 carries again for another season? I was surprised about that, which made his announcement to transfer not quite as surprising. It said, oh, okay, now I get it. Shockey Jacques Louis, kind of the same thing. A guy who really just sort of fell down the depth chart. I mean, he was behind, obviously, Jordan Addison. Didn't get as much playing time as Jared Wayne. Probably would have split with Jalen Barden and maybe even fallen behind Barden. Guys like Jaden Bradley were getting more playing time. If Kanata Mumfield, the transfer from Akron, comes in, he would be ahead of him. And Shockey, I thought Shockey was going to be a stud. I thought Shockey was going to have a great career at Pitt. I really did. From where he was as a recruit, how he looked in high school, and even some of the early reviews when he was a freshman in 2018, I think it was 18, 19, 20, 20. Yeah, 2018, like training camp. Some of the things we were hearing was that this kid is just incredible. He's going to be a great player, and it just never really seemed to come together for whatever reason. And I'm not sure why it never came together for him, but I guess he just couldn't really be consistent enough to make plays and to, contribute as part of the offense. And so it's not too surprising to see him go. He's got an extra year left to play. Go find an offense that fits you, maybe somewhere closer to home in Florida, and have a great, super senior year. Both of those guys, I think, have been good program guys. Todd Sibley especially has been a good representative for Pitt during his time, but not too surprised that either one decided to go. They'll still need a few more. Transfers to go to fit everybody in with all the recruits and then the transfers and the super seniors they're bringing back. But they're chipping away on the numbers. Michael B says, would Pickett and Mack have played if Pitt was in the playoffs? I don't think Taysier Mack was going to be able to play. I don't think he was going to be healthy. I don't think, once he suffered his injury, I think he was another collarbone injury. I don't think he was ever going to be able to come back this season, even if they were in the playoffs. Would Kenny Pickett have played in the playoffs? Yeah, probably. I think so, because there'd be an opportunity to play for a national championship. And I mean, the reality is that means something, and the Peach Bowl doesn't. The Peach Bowl is great. It's a New Year's Six Bowl. It's one of the big time bowls. It's a big time stage, and it's a great opportunity. But it's an exhibition game, and they count it, and they count it as part of your record, and that's important. But throughout the season, you're playing for a championship. Playoffs, you're playing for a championship. Peach Bowl, you're not. So in the playoffs, yeah, I think Kenny Pickett would have played. Chris Bruno says, did you see the fight on the bench between Cam Bright and Rashad Battle late in the game? Yeah, I saw some of the video for that floating around. I think it was after Michigan State scored the go-ahead touchdown. Cam Bright and Rashad Battle getting into it for whatever reason. I don't know what was going on there. All I can say is that, look, as much as we talk about, and I've said it myself, I've tried not to use the word meaningless, but an exhibition game that doesn't count, you're not playing for a championship, all these things that sort of, not nullify the game, but kind of. I think when you see something like that, it's pretty clear how much this game meant to those players. And that's kind of what I meant when I was saying about, if there's a game being played, players want to win it. Coaches want to win it. Fans want to win it. Even if it doesn't ultimately, you're not playing toward a championship. They want to win the game. They're competitors. And it means a lot to them. And they have a lot of intensity. And I think some of that came through on the bench. I mean, it's the kind of thing that happens. I think particularly if you're in a rough game, I think you're in a tough loss, a game where you're ahead and you're disappointed, you're frustrated, you've given up 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to lose your lead. And sometimes those frustrations boil over. Let's see here. TRR, we'll actually give you the last question here because it looks like we're coming up on that 75-minute mark. Seems like a good number to go for. TRR says, do you think Pitt lands a recruit or two in February's signing period? I don't think they're going to get any more high school kids. I think what you'll see as far as additions over the next couple weeks will just be transfers. I think they'll get a couple more transfers to add in here. Obviously, Kanata Mumfield is the one we've talked about a lot. Michigan State linebacker Michael Dowell is another one to keep an eye on. I think Pitt's got a really good chance of landing him. So that'll be, that would help, obviously, the linebacker core for 2022. But I don't think they'll add any more high school kids. I think it'll if they make more additions, and I think they will. I know they will. I think it'll probably be transfers. I think they're done with high school prospects. Anything could happen. Anybody could be a surprise, but I don't see it happening. I don't expect them to sign any more high school recruits. I would say that is pretty much done. So that's probably where they're at. They signed the 12 guys in December, and now they're just looking for transfers to kind of fill out this roster because the roster's close. The roster's really close to looking really potent for next season. You get those offensive linemen back. You have all the skill guys outside of Taysier Mack coming back, and then we talked about some of those transfers. Lucas Kroll will be gone, but you got Gavin Bartholomew back. Defensively, we'll see what decisions are made for Deslin Alexandra and Cam Bright. Those guys have a decision if they want to come back or go to the NFL. Habakkuk Baldonado could be a possible decision to watch. We'll see what happens there. But they have so much coming back that they just needed to fill in a few holes with transfers. And if they do that, they should position themselves for a lot of success next season. And I think they've done that at quarterback so far. I think we'll find them doing that at linebacker relatively soon. And then we'll see what they can do. Maybe a wide receiver on top of all that. And this team should be positioned to reload and make another run. Make some noise in 2022. We'll see. I can't believe it's the last day of 2021. It's such a cliche. It's such a corny thing to say. Like, oh man, this year has gone so fast. But here we are. The football season is over. It's all basketball now. It's been a fun year. I think these live streams have really, it's become a really fun thing to do. It's been fun having everybody join in during the chat and really have kind of a conversation and go back and forth. I think we've built something here, and it's been a lot of fun for me. And I say thank you to everybody who came into these live stream chats and participated, listened to the podcast through the week. Maybe you listen to the podcast and you're like, man, I want to get in there and ask questions and make comments and all that kind of thing. Well, it's the opportunity to do it. We'll be back on our regular Wednesday night schedule every Wednesday night at 8:30, talking about everything going on in Pitt sports. because, we've settled into that schedule and it's worked out pretty well. And like I say, it's been a lot of fun. So thanks to everybody who participates. Thanks for everybody who checks these out, listens to these podcasts, watches the video, joins the live streams. It's fun, especially like the post-game ones. I think we had a lot of fun on the post-game podcast this year. Everybody venting or celebrating or a little of both, oftentimes both. It was a good time, though. I had a lot of fun with it, and like I say, I can't thank you enough for checking it out. Make sure you check out Homefield. Homefieldapparel.com is the website. Use the promo code LAIR, L-A-I-R, to get 15% off your first order. You can get some great Pitt stuff there, so make sure you go and check that out. Homefieldapparel.com, and then Panther-Lair.com. When we're not taping this podcast, we're on Panther-Lair.com. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. That's the place to be. So make sure you go check that out. We would love to see you on the message boards. And we'll keep following this team as they build the roster for 2022. We'll see what that year brings. Have a great, happy, safe, healthy New Year's Eve. Hope everyone's had a great 2021. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. We'll talk to you in 2022 on Wednesday night at 8:30 for the Panther-Lair Show. Happy New Year, everybody.